visitors and welcome at our booth at Bosch Home Comfort Group. And I have the pleasure to introduce the next insight into our company. And we have no smaller topic than oh, sorry, now I'm completely fishing for words. Generative AI, artificial intelligence, and how we are using it in our company. And engineers spend a lot of time and effort in refining designs, solving problems, and creating the perfect product, also in our company. And the question is, will generative AI do all of these tasks in the future for us? Or will it solve any of our problems or even create more of our problems? And my colleague that I introduce to you next will show us what's real, what's possible, and how we are already using generative AI in our company in the product development department. And now I want you to welcome with me together my colleague Carsten Schmolders.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome from my side. I'm very excited and happy to be here and to share this fascinating and interesting topic with you, how we are using generative AI in heat pump development. And before I start, can I get a short show of hands? Who is using already chatbots or other generative AI technology in their daily work? Okay, so that's a couple of people. Thank you. But I will still start with the basics. What is generative AI? Because I will use this term, generative AI, quite a bit during the presentation, so I want to introduce it. I separate between two sorts of artificial intelligence. One is the conventional AI, descriptive AI, and the other one is the generative AI. For the conventional one, that was invented during the 1960s, neural networks, where it was all about finding patterns in data, clustering data. And now the use cases are object detection in images, for example. So you get answers from your data. Looking on the right side, we have the new stuff, which is generative artificial intelligence. Generative artificial intelligence is used, the purpose is to create content. Content that is indistinguishable from human-generated content. And the researchers in AI, they have developed new models for that. They call it now diffusion models or generative or adversarial networks. And what the AI is doing in the end is generating images, text, videos, and hopefully also some technical data for heat pumps, as I will show later. So why is it a topic now? There are three aspects. Why generative AI? First of all, it's really quick, progressing very fast. Second of all, a lot of money is being poured into it. And third, it is projected to have a very big impact. So let's go for the first one. I like this chart very much because it's showing, on the very left, it's showing how many days it took typical services in the past to reach 1 million users. And you have Netflix that took quite a while to hit 1 million users. And then you had Facebook and Spotify that took 200 and 300 days. And then you have ChatGPT, which is a very prominent chatbot based on generative AI. And it only took 2 days for them to reach 1 million users. So it's because it's providing a benefit directly. Second topic, a lot of money. There's just a lot of money available for generative AI. There are the big companies, Microsoft, Google, they are projected to spend 180 billion on an annual basis on artificial intelligence in the future. There are national programs. The United States of America have announced 500 billion in the Stargate program to fund artificial intelligence. Same on European side. And also then we have the startups that are crazily valued with, for example, OpenAI at 300 billion at the moment. And the last topic is the projection of the impact of AI is huge. There is research institutes, there's banks who project that it will be somewhere in the area of 7% or 0.6% annually of GDP contribution, and that is trillion of dollars we are talking about. Now, there's a big but to that one, because you have to take all the numbers with a bit of grain of salt, since the technology is also crazily overhyped. A lot of these startups will fail, a lot of the demonstrators, they will not work out. And there's also the research institute, Gartner, who are famous for having this Gartner hype cycle, which is putting technology in the maturity stage. And Gartner is placing generative AI at the moment on the peak of overinflated expectations. That's a nice word, peak of overinflated expectations. And technology that is on this peak, it has to prove now if it is reaching the plateau of productivity in the end, so if it's really contributing to productivity, or if it's sticking in the trough of disillusionment. So, let's find out. I have some experience now. Let's find out if we will be more productive or if we will go into disillusionment. Because I experimented with a couple of AI models and asked a very simple question. Hey, Gen AI, design a heat pump for me. So, if I typically ask that to our engineers, they will start working and they will start designing heat pumps. Let's see what happens when you ask AI. First, I need a 3D module. I wanted to have an assembly, technical drawing for an assembly of an auto unit. You get that. Yeah? You get 3D models, but they have components in there which are not really distinguishable. If I would carry that model to our manufacturing people, they would look at me very confused, I would say. Then I tried to design printed circuit boards for inverter drives. I said, hey, I want to have a Gerber file that I can bring into PCB manufacturing. What you get is, well, you get images, looks like a representation of a 60s PCB out of a comic, or you get component placement diagrams, which are, well, they are not wrong. Yeah, there are some right components on it, but it's unusual. There is no benefit to that diagram. And then the Champions League compressor design. What you get is, again, images. Well, it looks like an image of a internal combustion engine and a mix of a turbine, I would guess. Or you can have, again, component diagrams that are, again, not wrong, but in the end, not really usable. So, my conclusion in March 2025 is, hey, sorry, I cannot do that for you at the moment. And we could end the talk right now, but that would be pretty boring, right? So, we will not be Bosch if we would stop at that, because we at Bosch, we are currently using generative AI in a lot of use cases already to make our engineers more productive, increase efficiency and effectively, in the end, create better products with higher quality. And we are using it for search and summarization, we are using it in bot technology, we are using it for content creation already, and also software development. And because we want to enable our engineers, we don't want to remove our engineers, we need them, they are very, very, very good, but we want to enable them to be more efficient, and we want to remove the 3D tasks. Do you know what 3D tasks are? These are the tasks that are dull, dirty, or dangerous. You don't want to do that. AI can do that for you. So we are trying to identify that and put AI onto that. And you know, software development can be pretty dirty and dangerous. So let's look at a couple of use cases that we do in engineering with generative AI. But before we can go into detail, I have to explain you how we engineer. Because we are using what we call the V-model engineering approach over our system layers. And what it means is we have, at the very top, we have the heat pump system. And usually there's a product manager saying, hey, I want to have a heat pump that looks like that, has the following performance criteria, sound, power, efficiency, and I want to have that. And then there are architects and engineers who are breaking the requirements down into the modules on the refrigerant circuit, on the superstructure, on the hydraulics. And then again, we break it further down onto components, valves, pumps, compressor, electronic components. And after that, when we design these components, we integrate it all back on the right side. And we say, hey, we check every time, does it fulfill the requirement? And can we build up a heat pump again? And now, we are using generative AI today already all over this V-cycle of product development. We use it in requirements engineering. We use it during generation of code, during design permutations. We use it for testing. And I have brought now 5 specific examples to show you some of the topics that we do in detail, why we are doing it, and the benefit. Now, let's start with software development. What you can see here in the background is a tool that is being used by our engineers to generate code automatically. And in this case, it's tools from Microsoft, GitHub Copilot, and they use it here to generate a test case for a unit test for a specific function. But it's not the only use case that we have for software development. We also use it for software refactoring, we use it for design reviews, we use it for test generation, but also obviously for the plain coding. We have it currently that 30% of our engineers are using that, and the ones that are working with that, where we do continuous surveys, they are reporting that they feel 20% more efficient when using these kind of tools. So that's a great performance boost. And also we have increased quality because the engineers can focus again on more value creating topics and don't have to do all the debugging, the refactoring or commenting on code that nobody likes in software development anyway. The second topic that I like very much is knowledge management, because we have an internal bot, or we have several bots, and what you see here in the background is a bot that we have fed with a lot of engineering information, design guidelines, standards. We have put our research reports into that. We have put AD reports, failure reports into that, so the bot knows a lot of our engineering work. And here in this example, it's in German. The user is asking the bot, hey, what do I need to consider when I design copper piping for a heat pump? And instead of reading now through 2,000 documents, you get answers from the bot because it knows everything. We have built this our own. We created using some external tools. We built a brain that is absorbing 2,000 engineering standards and guidelines, and we put a chatbot interface in front of that so that you can now interact with the information and don't have to read all of the documentation. And the people who are using that, they are reporting 70% efficiency increase because they don't have to read through all the documents, but they can just ask the chatbot. So it's great technology, and we will see more of that in the future. The next example is testing. And not only any testing, this is the Champions League of testing. It's system testing. What we do here is you want to ensure that the functions that we have implemented are also doing what they are supposed to do. So overall, big system testing. And in this example that you can see running in the background is the validation of the away mode that we have in our heat pumps, but also in our boilers. And we use virtual test frameworks that are automatically executing tests. And the tests are not only automatically executed, but we also use generative AI to create the test scripts. So the engineers bring in requirements, bring in keywords, and then we get a test script out of that, and this can be fed into the automated execution engine, and then we get a very strong, up to 80% speed up of our test cycles on system testing. Now we move further up on the right side of the V cycle, and I have brought an example from technical documentation. We at Bosch, we are very, very proud of having some of the best technical documents, installation manuals, operation manuals, together with Buderos. We get that as a feedback. So you can also imagine that we have a lot of people working on these documents, since we don't only have that in Germany, but we have it also in several other countries. So you need to provide expert documents in high quality in different languages. And you cannot only ask Google Translate and ask, hey, Google, can you translate the document? Because we use specific terminology for the HVAC domain. And this is why we have created our own internal translation tool that is using generative AI and is enhanced with our terminology to create translation that an installer in the countries where we are saying can understand. And we are not only stopping there, the next topic, but I'm not allowed to share here because it's still top secret, but we will also use generative AI to create automatically the technical documentation itself. And then having there a very strong performance boost. Last but not least, marketing example. We also use generative AI in marketing, because when we have marketing images for our products, we need to create different images and different settings of the products and use different models. And this is very expensive because you need to find models and you need to have different settings. And now I brought an example here where we can, instead of having two models, a Caucasian one and an Asian one, we simply modify the picture by generative AI to have it fit to the local market requirements, and can then save money by not spending it on all the marketing images. And this is, I borrowed this example from our colleagues from Power Tools because I like it. It's a very nice example, but we are doing similar things in Bosch Home Comfort. Now, great, right? So some examples. Looks good. The path towards the generative AI future for heat pump development is, as this generative AI picture shows, is unlimited. Everything will be nice. No risk at all, right? We can just go in and get all the efficiency out of it. Unfortunately, not so much. I could tell now 2 hours about the risks that are attached to generative AI using it. There are geopolitical risk, energy consumption risk, technical risk, data security, and so on. But we don't have time for that. So I would rather show you two aspects of that you can hopefully also take away then for you when you want to use that in your company. One is what is happening next in terms of improving the technical capabilities of generative AI. Because my recommendation is, do not underestimate generative AI. There's a quote by Bill Gates, not Steve Jobs, the other one, Bill Gates, saying that we tend to overestimate the short-term impact of any technology, but we underestimate the long-term impact. So there will be hype at the moment, but long-term there will be great impact. Performance boost will be tremendously. Every iteration, every increment of the big Gen AI models, it's currently resulting in a factor of 100 in performance boost. That means if you take what I've shown you in the beginning, if you have ChatGPT, was elementary school, now it's moving to high school, soon it will be university grade, and then you have PhDs and professors sitting next to you, giving you advice on what you want to do. You have increased reliability. You can also understand what the data really means, what you have created there. And it will be multimodal, not only text, not only images and videos, but also what I've shown you. 3D models. You will have printed circuit boards coming out of the artificial intelligence, and we need to prepare for that. And therefore, what's really important is, how do you ensure adoption in the company? Because you cannot just say, hey, use now Gen AI. Yeah? There's a lot of information overload, a lot of information flow, and also there is some fear attached to new technology all the time. So what we are doing is, we are training our associates to make sure that they have a good understanding of the technology and can also use the tools and are not afraid of the tool. We're also supporting the change management of this whole thing, because you're working in the future with colleagues that are robots or that are generative AI based. So people need also to have that in their mindset and change, and this needs to be a cultural change. So we have programs supporting that. And last but not least, and this is always the tricky part, your data still needs to be very structured, still needs to have a high degree of maturity and sanity, because it's usually, as always, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have the data fundament in your corporation, then typically you will also not be able to build artificial intelligence models on top to get then all the productivity increase out of that. And you want to have that also fully integrated then in your engineering tool chains. And with that, with these advices, do not underestimate generative AI and ensure proper adoption in your company. I would close my short presentation for today, and thank you very much for your attention.